Hi everyone and welcome back to Ocean Avery. In this episode of the Natives in Norwich Zoom Room, it's part 2 with Bernard Williams, and today we're looking at how to breed Hawfinches and his experience breeding Hawfinches. So we're going to see some examples of his birds, we're going to see some examples that he's bred, we're going to see how he breeds them, he's going to talk about how he breeds them in which flights, food for them and the diet and everything like that. So please enjoy this episode. And then also I'd like to say a huge thank you to Avian World Dublin for sponsoring Natives in Norwich. So let's get right to it with Bernard. If we talk about your Hawfinches now, quite a special bird, aren't they? So you've bred Hawfinches in the past, and at one point, at least, on what I saw the other day, you had a good sized stud of them. What would be your advice on someone starting out with Hawfinches?
Well, first of all, where you get your birds from, because that's the difficult thing today. Very difficult to get hold of. There is a big section on my website on my breedings, and that shows the line of chaffinches that are bred in all colours, and it goes on to that. And it also shows the mules that I've played around with, So, but the Hawfinches, I had my own mix. I had my own mix of Hawfinches. It was a good British finch mix with safflower added, and I used to use a mixed millet. I once remember going to a talk to cage bird societies were quite good in a way, because you had talks with foreign bird keepers, budgie men, canary men, all that learn different things than we do as British men. And some of the foreign men are very clever. They breed finches the same way as we breed finches, albeit the finches we wouldn't keep particularly. And so some of the techniques they used, when I've been to their talks, they were useful. When I've organised talks for them at CBS Cage Bird Show, they were very interesting. And one of them used to tell me about millets being a very milky seed. Budgerigars rear on millet most mainly, and so do a lot of the zebra finches, Bengalese. So I started adding a bit into my finch mix, and over time, when I started breeding the haws, I give them quite a bit, because they're not really a soft food lover. So I give them a nice milky seed. So I would buy a millet conditioner, which have got all different sorts of millets in, and mix that with a good quality British finch, and safflower. And I give sunflower and safflower. And of course the Hawfinch beak could cope with them very easy. And where you get your birds from, I really don't know today, because there is a few lads still breeding a few, and hopefully, that they'll start to get easier to breed. I started breeding them for one reason, and that was to breed myself some spare hens to put with a crossbill, to try and be the first person to breed a crossbill Hawfinch. I don't believe the Hawfinch cock will ever breed personally. I think he's like the bullfinch cock, but I'm sure the hen would. And I find with a pair, what you want in a pair of Hawfinches is you want the hen to be dominant. If the cock's dominant, he knocks her about quite a lot. When the hen's dominant, she knocks the cock around, so he keeps out of her road. But eventually she decides she wants to breed, and she lets him in. And I find that pairing worked well for me, and I've bred 7 or 8 off one pair in a season, and I know lads, but that's the way I found it, that if the hen was dominant, it was a bit easier than if the cock was dominant, because he would hurt her.
Got you.
I always pair my birds up in the winter, and if you saw my birds on that picture the other day, they were in adjoining cages. They were only in there for the winter, the young birds. And what happens then is they would be paired up while they were out of condition. And I preferred to do it that way. Pair them up out of condition, and then leave them in over the bad winter, and then put them out in February, March. all my aviaries are covered with duplex sheeting, so they never really get the full weather anyway. And some have got glass fronts on as well as mesh and glass on the front that I can take off as the summer gets warmer. You undo 4 turn catches and lift the glass out, and it's non-breakable glass, this laminated it's called, I think, and I can lift all those glass panels out. So birds could stay out in the winter, but I prefer to bring them in from my point of view. I can control the freezing of the water and I aren't running up and down all the time. And since I've been bad with my breathing, it's easier to control everything inside for the winter. And then I would put the females out first, and a week or 2 before, and then add the males, which is what I tend to do with most birds if I can anyway. That way it gives the female a chance to get fit after being in a little cage over winter, and she's flying about quite well. Then let the cock out and he's a little bit slower than her, and she can get out of the road just for a few weeks until they're acclimatized to one another again. And I didn't have a lot of problem with rejection. Problems I did get with Hawfinches was you could rear them, and then once the young birds come out, I once had 5 in the nest. In fact, there's still a video knocking around on YouTube somewhere with some babies and there was 5 in that nest originally, and I turned me back on them, and the father had come down, seen 2 of them were cocks, and killed both the cocks. He didn't kill the 3 hens. He killed both cocks as quick as that. Now they were all right in the nest. What he did was he didn't kill them as regards straight out kill them. He refused to feed them.
Oh wow!
And the hen went straight down, like you'll see with a lot of birds. Like redpolls, you'll probably see that with redpolls. The hen goes on the nest and leaves the babies to be reared by the father. And the Hawfinches were doing the same. But the minute that they were, you could tell they were, because you can tell the cocks and hens very quickly with Hawfinches. And then he left the cocks to die, as if he'd said, "I'm not feeding them, the cocks, they shouldn't be here." But he carried on and fed the, And I had that a couple of times. So there's some little quirks with those. But what I did find, if you could rear them to 4 days, and this was in the early days when I liked hand rearing, because it saved birds and, it saved you buying birds. Only when I realised they don't breed as well as parent reared birds that I stopped doing it. But with the Hawfinches, I didn't. I carried on doing it. And what I found was slowly but surely, I ended up with more hand reared birds than I've got aviary bred birds. Because at 4 days, I could take them away. I could feed them on a good hand rearing formula, and I use Hagen Tropicon, which is a hand rearing form powder. You buy it in 1 kilo or 5 kilos, and they would rear on that alone without any live food or anything. And they're good, big, strong, healthy birds, and I could rear them on that. And it was a cheaper way of rearing them, because trying to give enough mealworms, and especially wax moths, to Hawfinches, they could eat wax moths for fun when they're rearing a nest of 5 babies.
Wow.
They do have 4 to 6.
Is it just insects then for Hawfinches when rearing?
No, they still take seed, but they do feed mainly on live food, mealworms, and they eat very little else. Perhaps today I'd give them peas, but I didn't have them in the days when we really bothered. I used to give them broccoli and carrot mixed in with the egg food, but I never give peas. Now I'd probably give peas, as well.
Right.
And, there's some good enough greenfinch mixes, though I would probably just give them a standard greenfinch mix now. But I would always add a bit of millet, just because I do feel it can be a useful seed.
Oh, definitely. But
if you get to 4 days, I realised I could rear them then, no problem.
Yeah.
But up to 4 days, I struggled. Some people I've heard breed them. I've heard people say they put them under bullfinches, an odd one
Oh,
under a
right.
bullfinch and reared one. Well, I would have never tried that. But
Yeah. Did you ever try fostering them out?
no,
No.
never.
Right. Okay.
When you've got us about 8 or 9 pairs of Hawfinch, I've never got room to have crossbills or anything that might, possibly
Yeah.
crossbills would do it today. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. So, when it comes to preparing them for the breeding season, what are you conditioning them on?
Well, as I say, I don't. Mainly, I think light's one of the biggest issues. You've got to get
Right.
the birds, get the light properly. Make sure that lights are not on till all hours at night time. I know that's difficult with men that go to work. I've always
Yeah.
been lucky. I've worked from home, so I've been able to deal with my birds in the day. A lot of people tend to have to have lights on till late, come in and have their
Yeah.
evening meal, and then go do the birds. I think the
Yeah.
best way of that is the lads that get up early and feed in the morning. But, so I think light's the most important. And
Yeah.
as with conditioning, I just give them the wax moths and the normal seed. Give them wax moths and obviously dip them in calcium powder because wax moths have got no calcium in them whatsoever. And as they'll feed on mealworms and wax moths fully, you need to get some calcium, and that speaks for anything from
Definitely.
wagtails to anything else.
Yeah.
They need that extra calcium,
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
no secrets, nothing special. You just start to increase the bit of live food. They don't need live food. You don't need to pile it on them. They are seed eaters. It's generally when they've got babies where you've then got to up the quantity, and that's when you see the pounds signs running away because
Oh, yeah.
wax
Yeah.
moths are just you then realise why people charge what they charge for wax for Hawfinches.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, imagine the cost probably a lot of money per bird just on that live feed,
Yeah.
like you say. As
But if you
youngsters,
hand
yeah.
rear it's cost you £4 or £5 for raise a nest of youngsters, just giving them the odd tidbit of a wax moth. It's very cheap to rear, but I have had hand reared birds that bred, and some that were very good mothers. But in general, that's how I lost my stud in the end, because I was hand rearing more and more and more to make sure I'd got enough, and didn't lose any. I was getting very proficient at it to the point where 21, 22 or 3 in one season was good. I was quite happy with that. And you need to breed that quantity if you're keeping 6 or 8 pairs, because you do have losses as well, and birds get older and you need to keep swapping. But what I did find was, like I say, that you slowly but surely they start breeding on you because they're all unreared.
Right. Wow. Yeah. Well, fair enough. I guess. Yeah.
And then the pie grievance is on for me, and off we went again. You see.
Yeah. Right. So, what sort of flight would you put the Hawfinches in?
Yeah, my Hawfinches are all in 63s. I don't know if you've seen my videos. You've not been here, but I've got a block of aviaries called Hawfinch Close.
Yes.
And there's a street sign on. Everybody has the photo taken next to Hawfinch Close. They're next to the sign when I was keeping Hawfinches. Every time that somebody called, they say, "Can I have a picture taken with?" Yeah, of course you can. And
brilliant.
Just because and that used to be full. And there's a block of 10 aviaries in there. And
right.
Well, there's 13 aviaries in that one block. There's 13 in that one block, but there's 10 6B3s, one 6B6.
Yeah.
And there was an half-round aviary where I've bred the skylarks and that, if you've ever been on my website and seen some of that breeding.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
That's it. But what I've done with that half-round now is split that into 3 separate aviaries again.
Yeah.
Because I find that I prefer breeding single pairs, but but I like to have pairs around. And I think most
Yeah.
people would have one pair of Hawfinches. We were talking about this the other day, and I think colony breeding is probably the way. One or two people said online that they'd actually bred them in a colony. I've never done that, but I've always had them in earshot of each other. And I
Yeah.
think if one pair can see another or hear another, that helps. And I've
Right.
always liked to do that breed. If I'm breeding chaffinches, I'll have 6 or 8 pairs of chaffinches. If I'm breeding Hawfinches, 6 or 8 pairs of haws. And the same with any, because I think when you've got 8 to 10 pairs of the same species, you can transfer babies easier.
Oh yeah,
Because you've always
absolutely.
got something else down on eggs. And
Yeah.
secondly, you know, if one mother stops feeding, you can move eggs easier, to, you know, and shove things around.
Oh, definitely.
So all these things can be, you know, can be done. It's,
Yeah. That would be interesting, colony breeding. I think definitely something some people should try, because you might have a hell of a lot more success with that, and then they'll
Yeah.
become a readily available thing. I mean, I'd love some Hawfinches, but trying to source them, barely anyone's got them.
That's right.
It's a real shame.
I mean, in the days
Wow.
when I was keeping them, which is that's 20 years ago, and I had them for a good 10 years or more. They were quite not easy to get hold of then, but there was availability, and there was people breeding them. And, you just don't seem to see them now, the same way.
No. Oh well, I guess hopefully they'll bounce back, and and people will manage to get some numbers out.
That's what would be nice, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I hope you've enjoyed that episode. I certainly did, and I've learned an awful lot about breeding Hawfinches. Hopefully something we'll bring into the bird room soon, so I'm really looking forward to it. If you've got Hawfinches, maybe you've learnt a thing or two as well. And if you've got any more tips and like that, leave them in the comments below. I'd love to see what your tips are on breeding Hawfinches if you have bred them before. So thank you so much for everyone for watching. Again, thank you to Avian World Dublin for sponsoring Natives of Norwich. If you want to join Natives of Norwich on Facebook, the link's in the description, as well as the link to Avian World Dublin's website and their Facebook page. So thank you very much for watching, everyone. If you've enjoyed it, subscribe down below, smash the like button, and I'll see you in the next video.